Welcome to Sold Sistas podcast. I'm your girl, LaTrease.
I'm Cairo.
I'm Future.
And this is our very special guest, Attorney Walter Starghill.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we are giving you all the tea, all the things that you guys have been requesting and asking to learn about real estate law, probate law, things of that nature. So we're just going to go ahead and dive in. Y'all ready?
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
All right. So first thing first, we want the people to get to know exactly who you are, how they can get in contact with you, things of that nature. So if you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure thing. Attorney Walter Starghill III. I am the managing partner of RET Law Group, RET Law Group. You can reach me at walter@retlawgroup.com. I'm not on social media, but if you contact these wonderful young ladies, they'll also be able to get you in contact with me expeditiously.
I felt a little judged when he said I'm not on social media.
He has to keep his private life private. I love that. I understand.
So today we are going to be discussing the legality of real estate. So we've already introduced our attorney, but can you kind of tell us exactly what is a real estate attorney for the people that don't know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I actually specialize in real estate, probate, and estates, and business transactions. So real estate is a very interconnected area of law that touches on a couple of other areas of law. So it's good to have a individual that understands real estate when you're dealing with, of course, real estate transactions, but also probate, your business transactions, as well as any type of foreclosure actions that we were speaking about earlier before the podcast. So a real estate lawyer touches on a lot of quiet title issues for the most part. What a quiet title action is where there's a dispute between two parties regarding who actually owns the property. That's the majority of actions that I receive. Other than that, it's the foreclosure actions, the probate actions where grandma dies and now the other living descendants are trying to figure out what to do with the property, or they may be in a situation where they may be losing the property. They have to have the authority to actually sell or transact and convey that piece of property. That's where I come in.
Okay, so can you kind of give us a brief background on yourself and like how you got into real estate law?
Sure thing. So initially, I was a financial advisor prior to going to law school. Ended up attending University of Toledo.
Okay.
We talked about the full ride scholarship. I refused to pay for school. So I did get a full ride through University of Toledo Law School.
Oh, right.
And
You did good.
Right.
and through those particular studies, I always knew I was going to be a sole practitioner person. I've always been a business owner. So the next step was finding your niche. And in finding my niche, I was able to connect with individuals like Future and the real estate collaboration and work a few of their matters and resolve those for them. And it really caught on. And I actually have a mentor in the space as well. Who was my uncle, so I'm a second generation attorney.
Okay.
Awesome.
So he really pointed me in the direction of real estate.
So you make him very proud.
Absolutely. He swore me in.
That's awesome.
That's beautiful. Okay, so you kind of already gave us an idea of what like a real estate attorney does. But you mentioned probate, but I don't think that people know what probate is. So can you kind of like give us like a 10th grade version of like what probate means?
Sure thing. Everyone has an estate plan, whether you create it yourself or you allow the state to create it for you. Probate is just the process of executing that estate plan. Some people know about wills and trust. A trust survives outside of probate, but a will has to be probated in court. So whether or not you have a will or you do not have a will, all the property that is in that individual estate that passed away has to go through probate.
So I try to tell people that oftentimes because they're like, oh yeah, I got a will, I'm good. And I'm like, no, you need a trust. You're not, I don't think they understand like, because I wrote on a piece of paper and said, hey, here's this loose sheet of paper. This is what I'm giving you. Like, it doesn't stand, after God forbid something happens.
Absolutely. So that happens a lot. Funny story. I was transacting the deal. I was on the buyer side. The seller had a trust, but the problem was they did not title the property into the trust. It was all in the individual's name still. So when the check had to come, the title company couldn't write the check to the trust. They had to write it to the individual. She was highly upset because she paid for a trust, but couldn't use it because the attorney or however it went did not transfer the property into the trust. So that's one main issue I see with individuals that may have done all the right things, but they did not do the last step, which would be to transfer the property into the ownership of the trust.
Okay. So speaking of trust, I have a question. So I have a lot of clients that'll purchase a property and it has a mortgage on it, and they'll ask, well, can I put this in my trust? Even though I have a lien on it from the mortgage lender, is that something that's an option?
That's a good question.
Yeah, so I've come across that as well. So say, for instance, even a person wants to put the property in their business name, so not just a trust, but a business name. So this would be applicable to both. Sometimes there are requirements or statutes inside of the mortgage that does not allow you to transfer or convey that property unless it will accelerate that particular mortgage. So you can speak with your mortgage lender and say, hey, this is what I want to do. Will there be an acceleration of my loan if I transfer my property into my trust, granted that it's still secure personally to myself?
So when you say acceleration, just meaning like, hey, now it's due immediately, like it has to be paid off in full.
Correct. So you have a $700,000 mortgage or $200,000 mortgage, you transfer the property inside of the trust. The mortgage company says, hey, this property has been conveyed out of your name, accelerate the payment. So all those future payments that would have been due on that schedule over 30 years are now due today.
Okay.
So I kind of want to jump back a little bit when we talked about probate, because I know personally I've had a lot of clients that deal with either purchasing a home that's in probate or buying a, like on the seller buy side. What is happening? Because we're always like, oh, it's in probate. It's up in the air.
That's a really good question.
What is happening in this magical world of what's happening during probate? Like, what are we searching? Like, realtors know if something happening, papers are being shifted, but what is actually going on?
So from a realtor's perspective, you're concerned about the letter of authority.
Okay.
That gives the individual the power to act on behalf of that deceased individual.
Okay.
Okay. And in that particular letter, it states who is the personal representative. And that person has the power to sign on behalf of the estate and sell the property, get the transaction through. So in most cases, what has occurred is an individual is trying to sell a piece of property. They contact a realtor.
Yeah, like the situation that we dealt with.
And you all do a fabulous job. Go get to closing. You have the deal on the table. You're at closing, and title says this person doesn't own the property.
Mm-hmm.
It's deeded in grandma's name,
right?
Dad's name, mom's name, dad's name. So what you would need from me is to help facilitate that individual that's trying to sell the property, and 9 times out of 10 it's an heir.
Mm-hmm.
So they do have the authority, as in they're in line to receive the property. So we petition the court in order to get the letter of authority, so that individual has the authority to sell the property. So that allows you all to finish the transaction.
So the length is when you're petitioning the court. Is that the length of? Because I'm talking about like why it takes so long. So that's what we're waiting for.
So
right?
sometimes individuals petition themselves. They go out and do it themselves. And,
oh my God!
And they will get the letters of authority, but it has restrictions,
right?
Because they did not use an attorney.
Okay.
And with those restrictions, what happens is they have to petition the court another time in order to get approval to sell the property. So generally, when you use an attorney, you don't have those restrictions. If you're doing a application of informal probate, you won't have those type of restrictions. We can get the property sold. The proceeds will just have to remain in the estate until the estate closes.
And then I think a lot of it too is using just like you have to use the right realtor, you have to use the right attorney. I have a client right now that I'm getting ready to list their property, and they have been in probate for almost 2 years. And I'm just like, I've never seen that. But I don't know if it's circumstantial or is it, but their attorney isn't even here. They're like in a whole other state. And I'm like, maybe they're not completely familiar with Michigan law either too. So I don't know. But
How much does it typically cost when someone needs a lawyer to handle their probate case?
Okay.
I know it can vary because
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
bill by the hour. But and get billed.
Absolutely. Let me go back to Cairo's question for a second. The difference between having a lawyer and not having a lawyer at the beginning of probate is it may take me one day to get the letter. of
Yeah, because
authority
anytime we
versus-
use them, it's be quick.
Yes.
Yeah, versus the individual that petitions on their own behalf, it may be a few months,
Yeah.
and you may lose the deal
Mhm.
in the interim, right? And to your point, in the future, in terms of payment, it really varies. That's the most lawyer answer I can
Wow.
possibly.
You knew that was coming. You knew that was coming.
But it really does. It varies based off, is this a contested probate? So are the family members beefing? You know, is there some type of dispute between the family members to say, I should get more than my share, right? And sometimes that's a valid dispute because maybe one person has been paying their taxes for the past 10 years and they want to be able to recoup those dollars that they spent maintaining the property, right? In other instances, it may be a situation where a creditor comes into play, right? So if a creditor has the opportunity to petition the court for those proceeds and those funds and the assets of the estate, the number one creditor that I see that you just can't muscle is the state, right? So that individual might have been on Medicaid, even though they have property, they didn't have to sell their home in order to stay on Medicaid, and they may have racked up a bill of $100,000.
Wow.
Have you experienced it?
Seriously, I've had a case where the individual had $300,000 a claim through Medicaid, and they had the piece of property. We have to settle those type of disputes.
That's crazy.
That's some information.
Yeah, that's
no
new
one
for
ever
me.
talks about. Wow.
And how to avoid that, right?
How do you avoid that?
Before you go on Medicaid, you should do some estate planning. So whether that be a ladybird deed, I'm pretty sure you can enlighten your listeners about that, or trust, or some type of instrument that will allow the property to transfer without having to go through probate.
Okay.
Okay.
So basically, we need to probate is where things start getting sticky.
Absolutely.
And just to kind of piggyback off of what you mentioned, because I didn't know what a Lady Bird deed was until I had a client or a situation where we had to discuss it. But like a Lady Bird deed, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, it's in the event that the owner passes away, the deed transfers over to whoever they assigned that Lady Bird deed to, but they don't have rights as long as that person is living.
Correct. In a nutshell.
Okay.
So a Lady Bird deed allows a present interest holder in the property, usually let's just use a mom and a son, right? For simplicity. The mom owns the property. She has a present interest in the property. She Lady Bird deeds the property to herself and her son. She still maintains a present interest in the property. She just gives the residual interest to her son. Residual interest meaning upon mom's death, demise, it goes to the son. Now, mind you, mom will still have the power to sell, mortgage, convey the property as she wish without having the son's signature.
Approval when
Exactly.
she is alive.
And
right?
that's why individuals love the Lady Bird deed versus being a joint tenant or a joint owner in the property. Now the son has to sign off in order for mom to convey or mortgage that piece of property.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I would say one of the biggest takeaways is to make sure for the people that have parents that own properties that they have something in line, because probate is a big mess. And if you can avoid it, you should avoid it like the plague.
And I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I will say, it doesn't matter how far along, after someone passes away, you definitely don't want to deal with it at that time. And it makes it so much more difficult. And with our situation, my client's mom had been deceased for years, and it doesn't bring up good emotion when you have to go through the legalities of selling a home and then it's like, okay, now I gotta do something else. Right? Like, let's have that uncomfortable conversation now so that we can be prepared, in the future. A little pivot. Let's talk about foreclosure while we're at it. Let's get into it. But that's something you want to talk about it. We really have our list, but for me.
I just wanted to share some information with your listeners, especially if they're living in Michigan, specifically because I practice here in Michigan. Because a lot of people are losing the equity in their homes through foreclosure, and that's a problem. So there's a new law or statute, whereas an individual can claim an interest in their equity after a foreclosure has occurred. So, but they have a deadline. That deadline is July 1st of the year the property was foreclosed. So not after the property was sold at auction in September or October or in July if you're Oakland County, but at the point of foreclosure, which is generally in March of every single year, there's a foreclosure. There are opportunities to redeem the property in March. Pay the taxes or go on a payment plan, you can redeem that piece of property, in which I encourage you to redeem. Because usually people are losing property for $1,000 or less. They're not losing property for a substantial amount of money. And there's two different types of foreclosure. You have tax foreclosure, which what I'm referring to now is a tax foreclosure. You did pay your property taxes, and the county is now foreclosing on the property to gain those monies that they owed. And you can get your surplus, but you have to apply prior to July 1st. Second is the mortgage foreclosure. That's a separate type of foreclosure. Generally, is for a substantial amount of money. You didn't pay $70,000, $200,000, $300,000. Now the bank is coming to foreclose. You can still get your surplus from that particular type of foreclosure as well, but as realtors, you also have an opportunity to help those individuals that are going to do foreclosure because they have 6 months to redeem that property, or to even sell that property and get the equity out themselves instead of it being basically lowballed through the foreclosure process.
Right.
People are buying properties for pennies on the dollar for at auction for your property, and you should be compensated for your own hard work that you put into this piece of property and the equity that is grown to.
Can you repeat that, please? That they do have a redemption period, because a lot of times when people see that foreclosure pop up, they just assume that the house is gone. Like, no, I can buy it, and it's like that's not how it goes. They
Right.
do give you an opportunity to redeem your property.
So if it's a mortgage foreclosure, do not move. Do not move from the property. Do not answer these people trying to give you cash for your keys, because what they're trying to do is accelerate that redemption period. You have 6 months to redeem your property. And in that, if you move, if you accept cash for keys or something like that, your redemption period is substantially lessened. So it goes from 6 months to pretty much 30 days after you accepted those cash for keys or you moved out, which is huge. So now you basically encumbered yourself in the opportunity to get the equity out of your property, or even redeem the property and stay in the home.
So knowing that you dealt with these type of situations, do you know why people would opt to even go through foreclosure when they can just sell their home with a real estate agent?
Generally, they're going through a very tough time. These aren't individuals that are trying to, something came up, a sickness. I was in the hospital and I was not able to pay my mortgage. My husband died. I've been grieving and I haven't had time to catch up with the mortgage company. You can even contact a lawyer prior to the house going into foreclosure, because you have to have notice whenever you're being foreclosed on. So as soon as you receive notice that your property is being foreclosed for, you should contact a lawyer. You should contact a realtor. They have resources in order to point you in the right direction of how to handle a foreclosure. From the point of notice, I always tell people it's better to hire me before the lawsuit than after the lawsuit. So the lawsuit being the actual foreclosure and you being your property is being sold at auction. It's better to hire me before then because I can help you in the reinstatement period. You have a certain amount of time prior to the actual foreclosure to reinstate your mortgage and get it in good standing. Like I said, most people are going through situations where it's just tight. It's just tight for individuals, and they need some help understanding what their options are.
Or sometimes it's two people in the situation and one person is being a little honorary. That's a real situation.
Sounds like
We're discussing. No, why? Don't be honorary. Sell your property when it's time to get sold if you know that you can't afford to redeem it. Like, stop playing games.
absolutely.
We're going to keep that.
I was talking about
Okay, so speaking of, and I know I've sent you all kind of crazy clients with all kind of crazy scenarios. What would you say is a good horror story or experience that you can share with us?
Is there anything considered a good horror story?
I mean, well, I'm saying for the listeners. I mean, obviously
So-
it's not good for the person going through it,
Oh, yeah.
but just for like the listeners that have no idea some of the things that can happen. You don't know what you don't know, right? So
Absolutely. So I have what I would consider a perfect storm type situation. The property owner, this gentleman was purchasing a property on a land contract. He ended up passing away. His mother is now, so you have to open up probate in order to get the rights, like we talked about earlier, to become personal representative.
Mhm.
The land contract seller is trying to kick him out of the property, right? Knowing that he's been deceased for some time now. So he's trying to reclaim the property and basically keep his money and claim the property, right?
That's so shady.
So the mother has to open up probate. I'm thinking he owns the house. Lo and behold, there's a land contract for the house. And generally, and this is for everyone that goes into a land contract, when you pay, well, one, make sure you get receipts for every payment that you make. But two, when you pay that property off, make sure that seller transfers the deed to you and it's recorded. I ran into a lot of situations where land contracts have been paid, but the seller, the buyer didn't know to get the deed, and the seller's being, I don't want to say slick, but for some apparent reason, the seller did not transfer the property over to the buyer, right? And I deal with that a lot. Okay, so make sure you get your receipts, and then make sure you get your deed at the end of paying for the property. So moving right along, we open up probate. Mom is that's a personal representative. Then I come to find out that the son has sold the property to someone else on a land contract. So now I'm dealing with, so the son is in the middle, the estate is in the middle. We have the seller, the original seller, and now I have a potential buyer that all has some type of claim.
So
to the
he
property.
Airbnb the house that he didn't even own yet. Okay, got it.
So yeah, so I'm dealing with that, and we are negotiating how to get this settled and get someone in the property, and then also the estate some funds for his little daughter.
So for all of the listeners listening that are thinking about entering a land contract because maybe your credit is in
not the best shape.
the limit shape, then you should just call LB and get your credit repaired because why get into a land contract and run into these type of situations? When I was working as a mortgage banker probably 9 years ago, I got a phone call where somebody was like in like a land contract situation. They were buying the house and the seller died. And then the kids came in and was just like, no, we're keeping dad's house. And this is like one of my clients in like Colorado. And he had paid majority of the house off and was just like, can you refinance me? But it was like really, really sticky because they didn't want to give it to him. And I was just like, I'm not an attorney. I don't know. But I mean, I can refinance you, but y'all got to figure out this title, on your own. So
For sure.
it can get really messy.
So that's huge. So you were representing the buyer, right?
Yep.
So the buyer absolutely had the right to maintain that property and maintain the contract for the land. And if anyone doesn't know, a seller for a land contract, they have to go through a forfeiture if they want the property back. And that forfeiture still gives the buyer 90 days minimum in order to catch up on any payments that are been missed, that are in arrears. That has to occur. And they can only go through a forfeiture if that forfeiture language is inside of the land contract. Otherwise, they have to go through a foreclosure.
So basically, baby, if you decide to not take our advice and still get a land contract anyways, you absolutely need an attorney to draw up the paperwork.
Tight.
Got it.
Be tight so you can protect yourself. Yeah, this was great. I feel like you so informational. I'm like taking it all in. I appreciate it. I want to talk a little bit. Well, I guess we kind of talked about your initiation. What drew you to becoming an attorney? Do you have any advice on, what you would do if someone's interested in real estate law or anything like that?
In real estate law, just familiarize yourself with the landscape that you're in, right? Know what type of transactions occur in that particular market. So in your D-target market, it's not going to be a $1 million deal. It's going to be smaller deals, right? There's going to be a ton of transactions. It's a very transactional city.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of investors coming into the city, right? So if you know the parties or the players involved, you'll know what type of transactions are likely to go awry. And you can specialize in those particular type of actions.
Did you know when you went into law that you wanted real estate to be your niche? Like, is that, you said your uncle is an attorney, right?
Yes.
So is that his niche as well, or?
Not necessarily. So my uncle has been practicing for 50 years.
Okay.
So he has several niches over, you have to think, over a period of a career, and that just goes for a realtor as well. Your market is going to change.
Mm-hmm.
So being in this market, in the Detroit market, you have situations where we've gone through great times in the city.
Right.
We've gone through the whole city being bankrupt. And we're going through a resurgence right now, right? A renaissance of the city. So being able to navigate those spaces and know what type of cases are likely to come up. When a city is doing bad, that means people are doing bad. I mean, if the city is bankrupt, more than likely you're going to deal with more bankruptcies with the community, right? So learning bankruptcy, you should have that in your back pocket, ready to roll. Do I have that yet? No, I only dealt with one bankruptcy so far. They're not fun.
You don't like it?
I don't particularly like it, and that's a part of the game, knowing what you like and what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do, and having a resource in who you call at the end of the day. So with that, I love real estate, period, and business transactions revolve around real estate. So that was my real passion, was business transactions. And you can't have a business transaction without real estate being involved in some capacity, whether it be a purchase or a lease.
If somebody's looking to get a trust done, will you do that? Or
Yeah, so I handle trust, powers of attorney, wills. You have two different types of powers of attorney. You have a financial, and you also have a healthcare. So both of those particular type of documents.
You're not talking about my trust.
I'm sure it's low. It's gonna be low.
I've been putting it off for a year. My kid's gonna be upset if something happens.
We were talking about interesting situations. Dealing with a situation right now. It was a couple, and you will run into this a lot. You have a couple that's not married, no children involved, but sometimes there are children involved, right? And one person passes away. What does the other partner receive? Do you know?
Nothing.
And we don't have dowry rights in our state.
Absolutely nothing.
And they're not married. You
Yeah.
don't get
Oh,
anything.
yeah, yeah.
Everything goes to the children.
If there are
married.
children.
Even if you're not married, you gotta have a trust. Because everybody don't want to be married. But if you don't want to be married and you're with someone for a long period of time, you need to have a trust.
So I was just actually talking to my makeup artist earlier today about that. And we were talking about couples that are like in relationships for like 20 plus years. And you're like, I'm not getting married. It's just a piece of paper. It's just, it's just a contract. And I'm like, but that contract is important. What do you have to say to people that think like marriage is just like it's not significant. Like when it comes to their spouse's demise.
Or the alternative, they gotta have some type of contract.
Right. So even in a blended family, right, somebody can lose in that particular situation, big time. And what else? Some people just don't want to get married. So maybe that individual was married before, and they're just against the idea of being married again because the situation scarred them so badly that they just refuse to be married again. And which I understand. Marriage isn't. I won't say marriage is for everybody. I mean, clearly, it's not because some people are not married, right? So, what do you do in that particular state in order to protect yourself and protect your partner? One thing is life insurance, making sure you have some type of policy in order to cover household expenses. The individuals have minor children going to college, right? How do you pay for college if one person passes away? Easy way to cover it is life insurance. Two is to have that will or trust, right? Especially if you have property. So what I see is one person usually has the property in their name. They never put it in both individuals' name. So if the person that owns the property passes away, now that other partner is out in the cold, right? You're at the discretion.
It's cold.
Yeah,
Out there when that
cold.
happens.
It's cold in
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
I'm not testing
Absolutely.
nobody.
Absolutely. So in that particular instance, you can use a will in order, if you're not a official family member, you can use a will to create a devisee, which will be your partner. And that's the safest way to go to probate and allow that person to have property, even though a family member can contest that. But a trust will avoid probate. Put the property inside of the trust.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about prenups or prenuptial agreements? Like,
Or
do
post nuts.
you deal with any of that?
Yes.
Okay, so can you give us a
Just
juicy story?
Do you?
No,
Well, go
I'll
ahead
tell.
and share
Oh, no,
the
I'm just gonna
story.
tell Cairo.
Go ahead.
I can't tell everybody.
I want to hear it now. I'm like,
Yeah.
what could it done differently? Like, but of course, prenups are more common than postnups. And generally, I deal with a lot of prenuptial agreements with individuals that have a partner that they're like, I love this person, but they look like they might, just knowing them, they might take me, for my stuff, right?
That's insane.
So generally, one person may have more assets than the other individual, and they just want to make sure this is really love.
Why do you think that's insane,
I
Cairo?
agree
Because
with
now, like,
I don't know. I agree with prenups. I think
me and Michael won't call him about a post nut.
I
You don't really
that's
divorce.
your business.
Everybody has a
prenup.
prenup.
Yeah,
right?
I agree with prenups. I
Everybody
think
have
it's more
a
of like if you come into the situation and you have a substantial amount of wealth, or you need to have something to have a prenup. That's what I believe. I don't think
Credit card.
So
maybe
Okay, so
some assets. We gotta have some assets.
Save your time. You can have a
So-
car.
you know what's crazy? I feel like the people that have the biggest opinion, especially like on social media when it comes to prenups, are the people that
don't have anything.
don't like, sir, what is somebody trying to take from you? What
Or
because your
ma'am,
your
or
Xbox-
ma'am, what is somebody trying to take from you?
But
My Xbox.
PS5 controllers. But no, look. So story time, right? So y'all don't got to turn on mortgage stories. So I have a client that I was helping years ago in New York. She was living in New York, making like, I don't know, probably like close to $1 million a year, right? And she had a prenup with her husband, but he waited his 7 years. And I don't know New York law, but he waited until that last day and divorced her. And because she's a doctor, she has to pay him alimony. So when she decided to relocate from New York to Florida, she can't keep up because the pay rate wasn't the same as it was in New York. So now to support him, she flies to New York every week and does 3 days just so she can make, the money she needs to make to be able to afford to pay him alimony and go back to live her life in Florida where
the
she
red
really
flags
loved
there.
there.
She should have divorced him first because Why did he do her like that?
Sometimes people just mad. They just upset.
You never know.
You never know what's going on with the person.
But she didn't know. She didn't know. She thought she did the right thing. She thought she protected herself with the prenup. She didn't know after a certain time period that it was voided, like it's completely gone. And I didn't know that was a thing either until she told me. I was just like, so wait, you can wait out a prenup?
Absolutely.
She should have took the lump sum. You know,
Oh, so she could have just paid him a lump sum and
sometimes you get an opportunity to pay a lump sum or pay over time. And she may have an opportunity to petition the court to lower the alimony in order, because her income sounds like has decreased.
significantly.
So,
Significantly.
Yeah, she needs to.
We don't know the situation, but I just that would
I'm
make
gonna leave
someone
that
fearful
alone.
of marriage because why would I don't know.
So what is the post nut?
an agreement after you get married. So you're still married.
But I was a
Or not.
little
Period.
poor when I got married, but now
Now I'm
Oh,
up. Now I'm up.
nah, well,
See how they doing this at door out here.
we need to have a conversation about me protecting.
I hope people are learning today because this episode is just packed
Dropping
with
gems.
I just want to make sure we didn't leave anything out.
I think we did good. We actually got a little more than we planned.
Yeah.
I gave you about 3 episodes in one. So
You did. We were trying to maximize our dollars and our time. That's what we all
They're very good at it. I'll tell you that.
Okay, so this is one good question I think Cairo came up with. Well, it's a 2-part. So I know you mentioned, who motivated you, but did you have any mentors in the field? And do you think that it's important to lift as we climb or reach down?
Well, we kind of forgot to mentor. But
We talked about him lifting as he climbed. He's going to introduce Cairo.
oh my God. Please take that.
No, we're going to add.
Buddy, I have a buddy.
A dating coaching advisor or a Cupid to the resume?
If you are online right now, you see this, call me. I got a direct line for you, brother.
I got it.
But you got to sign a pre.
She's okay with it though, right? That's what she said.
I know that. So never mind. I was gonna go down and rabbit hole. I said this is a real estate podcast.
Y'all can
Anyway,
build together.
absolutely. I'm gonna add to my man every single time. So add
Her man, her
Yeah, that's beautiful. So, future, I feel like we didn't really hear a whole lot from you. Like, what do you have to say?
Is that everything I need to say? We on clock. Let's wrap this up.
we appreciate your time, Sam.
We really appreciate it.
wonderful. We try to educate, and I think this one.
Yeah.
So, just a recap again. So, if people have questions or they are in need of a real estate attorney for any of the services that you mentioned, where do they go to contact you again?
You can send me an email at walter@retlawgroup.com. That's RETLAWGROUP.com. Or you can call me 248-910-9576.
All right. If you guys have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you on the next episode.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Peace.